Hi guys. Thank you, David. It was really nice to hear you talk about that. I didn't prepare any remarks, so I'm just going to kind of go off the cuff here. I started my Substack 1 year ago. It was, a few months after I had left Jezebel, where I was the editor in chief for 2 years. And then after that, I had a job running a few alt weeklies in the Midwest. And both times I was really frustrated with the big companies, these sort of umbrella companies running these small, scrappy publications. And I felt like they were mistreating the writers. And I made the decision to go independent. And so I do both freelance. I write a column for The Cut at New York Magazine now. And I've been writing a little bit for Rolling Stone, for Elle, for various magazines. And then I have my Substack. So a year ago, when I started the Substack, which is called Nightcap, I was still trying to get my footing, still trying to figure out what it would be, how often I would do it, how much to charge people for. You really can kind of make it your own. People weren't so engaged in the news. It was still sort of the beginning of the election. And it wasn't as politics weren't as urgent in the US as they are now. And so I kind of made it sort of a politics and culture and sort of like everything newsletter, which I find doesn't really work very well on Substack. I think the people who do really well on Substack have a lane and stick to it, or like even a micro niche, and so as I kind of went along and experimented with some different kinds of content, I was doing sometimes my bread and butter was politics essays, but occasionally I would do a personal essay or streaming recommendations or like a comedic piece. And I don't know, that was still just kind of filling in the spaces for when I didn't have much to say about politics. And then when the attempted assassination or whatever we want to call it on Trump, if the bullet grazed his ear, if it didn't, however you see that, things started to really pick up in terms of politics news and people's interest in it. And then when Kamala swapped out for Joe, that's when my readership started picking up, and I really just pivoted to focusing on politics. When Trump won, and in the past couple of months, when we've really been accelerating into more of an authoritarian style government, and they've been flooding the zone with news on purpose, the government has, as sort of a strategy. I think people are growing increasingly frustrated with the way that mainstream newspapers are covering these developments, like the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, particularly like Washington Post and LA Times, who have gotten bought by big billionaires who are now explicitly trying to tip the coverage towards being pro-Trump. I think people don't know who to trust anymore, and they're increasingly looking towards independent journalists and stronger voices. And my voice is very specific on Nightcap. It's irreverent, it's conversational, it's a little bit humorous, it's certainly left leaning, very left leaning. And I don't apologize for that. And I don't pretend that it's anything else. And people know what they're getting every week when they come. And just like David, I like to include a lot of visuals. And I consider it sort of, I am very online all the so that you don't have to be speaking to my readers. I'm watching what Trump is saying on Truth Social. I'm on, unfortunately, monitoring what's happening on X. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm reading all of the news that people don't want to get subscriptions to anymore. And I'm kind of synthesizing things and writing essays in really digestible and visually appealing ways with my voice, that I think are the weekly thing that people should care about, or the weekly thing that I find funny, or the weekly thing that I find really infuriating. And I find that it's really resonating with people. And my paid subscribers doubled in January. And I'm still trying to figure out, nothing's behind a paywall yet. I'm trying to figure out whether it makes sense to start putting a paywall there, start kind of forcing readers to pay. At this point, it's still sort of a volunteer if you want to support my work. And I hope that people do see how much work I put into it and then want to support this effort financially, because this is, a job that I would like to have permanently, if people like what I do. But right now, I don't have any kind of a paywall situation. It's just pay if you want to support. Yeah, but I just celebrated the one year anniversary a couple of weeks ago, and so we're still a baby newsletter, but I'm certainly really enjoying being on Substack and independent media in general, and it does certainly feel like the future. So that's it for me.